Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Dragoslav Zakariev. I am Deputy Director of the Institut français du Royaume-Uni, and I am delighted to see you this evening and to welcome you here for a new talk that we co-organize with the Serpentine Galleries with the Brazilian artist Gabriel Massan, who will be in conversation with Tamar Clarke-Brown, who is Arts Technologies Curator, and Hans Ulrich Obrist, Artistic Director of the Serpentine Galleries. This conversation is related with the current exhibition of Gabriel Massan and collaborators at the Serpentine North, that I suppose you have already seen, under the title Third World, the Bottom Dimension. Gabriel Massan comes from the land of future, as the Austrian writer Stefan Zweig used to call Brazil, when he immigrated there, fleeing the atrocities of war in Europe in the last century. And today, Brazil is one of the most vibrant voices of what in international relations is called the Global South. The Global South, which brings some new proposals, very interesting in terms of artistic expressions and also social evolutions and orientations. And I'm looking forward to know more about these ideas and orientations, all in contrasts. But before listening to the conversation, I'd like to give the floor to Kostas Tassinopoulos from Serpentine Gallery. Kostas.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Kostas Tassinopoulos. I'm the curator of live programs at Serpentine. Thank you very much to Dragoslav Zakariev and to the French Institut and the brilliant team here for collaborating with us on today's panel and for their warm hospitality. We're always so welcome here. It's an honor to be joined by Gabriel Massan today for a conversation with Tamar Clarke-Brown, Art Technologies Curator, and Hans Ulrich Obrist, Artistic Director. To celebrate and dive deeper into Third World, the Bottom Dimension by Gabriel Massan and collaborators. So thank you very much, Gabriel, for being here with us today. This pioneering commission is powered by Tezos, Serpentine's Web3 collaborator, with who we are excited to expand the game's reach into online player communities by building an active and ongoing archive of gameplay. Serpentine's mission is to build new connections between artists and society, and we are always seeking new ways to present art beyond the gallery's walls. We could not be more excited to begin this journey with Gabriel and their collaborators that since its opening continues to welcome so many new audiences at Serpentine North, so I urge you all to come and visit the exhibition, while at the same time bringing together players around the world as this remarkable game takes off as a living artwork. This project is the brainchild of our pioneering Arts Technologies program, and it's so great to see a project like this come to light that puts into practice so many of the groundbreaking ideas underpinning the program's creative research into the possibilities ever emerging between art and advanced technologies. In Third World, the Bottom Dimension, Gabriel has devised a platform for other Brazilian multidisciplinary artists, Castiel Vitorino Brasileiro, Novissimo Edgar, Sota Mombaca, Ventura Profana, and vocalist and music producer Liza, to bridge Web3 and physicality. The game is the reason any of this project exists, bringing multiple queer Afro-Brazilian voices to be part of it and giving it resonance in the physical world. As a collective voice, Third World challenges us to rethink the ways in which we understand and orient ourselves. The project continues Serpentine Arts Technologies' commitment to experimenting with the role that the art field can play in the development of advanced technologies such as video games, blockchains, and AI, and understanding their impact on culture and society. Players can record memories of their own actions as they play the game, and by minting this record on the blockchain, build a public archive of multiple perspectives and actions. On behalf of Bettina Korek, CEO, and Hans Ulrich Obrist, Artistic Director, we want to thank Tezos founders Arthur and Kathleen Brightman and the Tezos team, Valerie Whitaker, Mason Edwards, and Whitney Hart for their incredible collaboration with our teams and the artists on this project. We are also deeply grateful to Frances Reynolds. Without her support, this project would not be possible. And as ever, we are inspired by her generosity and enthusiasm with which she embarks every time on our collaborations. Many congratulations are due to the legendary Serpentine team, Kay Watson, Tamar Clarke-Brown, Ava Yeager, Victoria Ivanova, Rosine McVeigh, Alex Boyce, Sarah Hamed, Haile Lemire, and everyone else involved in making this project possible. Thank you to Eva Spite and Jessica Payton for bringing tonight's program to life. And it's a really great pleasure that Frances is here and has agreed to say a few words. So please join me welcoming Frances Reynolds.
Thank you, Kostas. I'm Frances Reynolds, a fan of the Serpentine and a fan of obviously with the Serpentine and the team. And Gabriel is a very inspiring young, and well, not so young, very senior in his experience to share all his expertise with many other people around the world. I'm president and founder of Institut based in Rio de Janeiro. We're a nonprofit whose mission, spread around the country, is to discover young talents and throughout Brazil, in which we divide the country in the different regions, in a really reflecting the richness of the biodiversity of the country, the multicultural aspects of Brazil. And Gabriel is one of those talents that I want to turn him into not only an international hero, but also into a Brazilian hero, because I'm so proud of what he has achieved. And anyway, I want to thank everybody in the Institut Français, and all of you here, and Hans especially for his insistence that I stay here. But as usual, he always catches me. But anyway, thank you so much. And I invite you all to Brazil, come to Rio, and we'll show you what we're doing. And obviously, feel free to contact us at any time. Thank you very much, and success tonight. Thank you.
Please welcome Gabriel Massan, Hans Ulrich Obrist, and Tamar Clarke-Brown to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these introductions to Dragoslav, to Kostas, and to Frances. And thank you all for being here tonight. And Tamar and I are very grateful, of course, to Gabriel for accepting to do this talk tonight. And it's particularly exciting because Tamar and I actually co-moderated a conversation with Gabriel at the very beginning of this adventure, of this process, a long time before the show happened. So it's amazing now that the show is open, to revisit the process and tonight really talk about the game and about Gabriel's practice. Of course, tonight is all about the game, the video game Gabriel created for the Serpentine. And if you haven't yet experienced it, I really hope you can all come and experience their game, not only see people play it, but actually play it yourself, engage with it. It's amazing if you think about the fact that last year, for the first time, more than 3 billion people played video games. That really makes a niche pastime into the biggest mass phenomenon of our time, bigger than the film, and the music world together. And it's interesting, 10 years after the book came out, to revisit Anna Anthropy's book, Rise of the Video Game Sinister, where Anthropy writes, what I want from video games is a plurality of voices. I want games to come from a wider set of experiences and present a wider range of perspectives. I can imagine, and you are invited to imagine with me, a world in which digital games are not manufactured for the same small audience, but one in which games are authored by you and me for the benefit of our peers. And in a way, that was the hope Anna Anthropy expressed 10 years ago, and that's what is happening now with artists like Gabriel and, of course, all the collaborators, and that will also be a topic of tonight's conversation, of course, is the theme of collaborations. I also wanted to reiterate how grateful we are to Tezos, to Frances, who really made this exhibition possible, how grateful we are also to the Institut Français for this ongoing dialogue. We were actually thinking a lot about the Institut Français collaboration and the Serpentine last week, at the occasion of the Agnès Varda opening in Arles, the memory of Agnes Varda being here with us and with the Serpentine. And there have been so many legendary and amazing events we did together. So we always think the Serpentine and the Institut Français is 1 + 1 = 11. So this is all very exciting. And Tamar, I think we'll give you now more of an introduction to the game maybe, and then we'll start the conversation.
Sure, thank you so much for having us, French Institute, and really excited to be in this conversation. As Hans was saying, it's almost been 2 years now since we've kind of embarked on this project, and I remember the first conversation we had in Venice almost 2 years ago now. It's almost 2 years ago now, and we were right at the beginning of the project, and I don't think any of us thought that we were going to kind of, it was always going to be a beta game, and we had huge ambitions, but also the ambition has only continued to grow through the support of Francis, through the support of Tezos, all these incredible people that are really invested in the project with us. So I think I'd just like to start just with this, a first conversation to sort of contextualize a little bit how the project began, and also how it sort of fed into your wider practice and where you began in your own work. So I suppose for everyone that doesn't know, the project began as a kind of invitation as the second edition of our Artist World series, which looks at simulated realities, looks at virtual environments, and looks at storytelling. The first edition of this was with an artist called Jakob Christensen, and we were really looking, we were thinking like who was, doing so many studio visits, and found Gabriel. And immediately it was very clear that it had to be them. They were thinking a lot about the similar things in terms of decentralization. They were thinking a lot about collaboration. And from the beginning, it was very clear that the work that they'd been doing, they'd done their first game, Iroko, and the work that they were really doing was really in line with what we would, invested in arts technologies in terms of, again, decentralization, in terms of gaming we've been looking at, of course. We started the conversation, and maybe if you tell us a little bit as I go through some slides, maybe how it began for you, or what was exciting for you about the invitation as well.
Hi everyone, thank you all to be here. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Serpentine. Thank you, Hans, and thank you, Tezos, as well.
It's been a long ride.
Now I'm remembering that we had the same conversation 2 years ago. Not the same conversation, but it all started. Wow.
Years ago.
It's been a long time.
In the background as you're talking, I'm just going to have up some diagrams from Faye, because I think we started with this conversation around the metaverse, and it was that time.
Yeah. Should I start with my personal practice, or should I start with our first meeting?
I think let's start with the first meeting, because we had these conversations and we were talking. It was the moment where this word metaverse was really huge, and we were kind of looking at how do you, Hans was saying, how do you also work with audiences in different ways? How do you really engage with the fact that, as Hans was saying, there's this crossover, and so many people that are into gaming, don't care in the same ways about art. There's different audiences, and actually we were really excited to see what you were doing and to see the fact that you were making work that really spoke to your communities and spoke to wider audiences.
Yes. I guess when we met was right after I created a piece called What Makes Us Beings. So was the time that I also kind of understood that what I was doing was world building, because this sentence or concept was not really so familiar to me. So then when we sat together, I had already some years of understanding that what I was doing was actually building an archive, actually following the collaboration that I had with IG in 2019 that brought me to Europe in the first place. And in 2019, having conversations with Iggy, I started also to question myself about what I was making in a way. What was the feeling that was consuming me to a point that I need to all the time be creating digital sculptures, or to be all the time sitting on a computer and just formulating shapes and creatures. So I guess when we met with What Makes Us Beings, that I put it most of my favorite characters in one piece and just them like run wild in a really free animation, kind of like losing control of it. So I had this feeling that I needed to lose control of my own creations because for so long they were based in my own emotions, and I really wanted them to be to escape from my own traumas and kind of like build their own narratives. So then you spoke to me, and then you invited me to do the artist worlds. I guess in the beginning we had like many conversations that you would be like just listening to me and telling me things, but actually not revealing that the project that we would be doing together was artist worlds.
I think we also didn't, we come from institution run by Hugo, who always says, what's your unrealized project? And I think for a long time we knew I didn't want to ask the question also. I did in the first studio visit, but I think I knew it was going to be something insane. So I was kind of waiting. Just to see what was going to happen. But I think, we had these conversations, and I'm really keen to also get into, we've got some of your sculptures up and get into, you call your sculptures like sculptor actors almost, right? And it felt like you were at this point in your practice, all the conversations we were having about the texturing process and what it meant for you in terms of, building up this body. We were talking about things like picture cow and the different way that you felt that your sculptures kind of picked up material as you walked through the world, or the way that they were their own like living entities. And I'd never really heard someone speak about their practice like that or their process like that. And I think it really also spoke to this kind of abstract expressionism side as well, or like, I don't know, there were so many references and such detail. I'd never seen someone with such an incredible eye for detail as well, which I soon learned was gonna be intense. But yeah, I think it was this moment where you really were, like you're saying, thinking about what else to do with this practice you developed, or these skill sets, in terms of technological skill sets as well. You built up this body of ability and these bodies of sculptures, and it was sort of, what was the next moment? What could you do with them?
Yes. I guess one thing that I remember, I think it was before us having our first studio visit, I had a call with Kay, and then Kay said that Serpentine was interested in my most unbelievable idea. And then I was like, oh, okay, here we are. Because what I wanted to do was actually like, I didn't know really how much I could do, because my brain really runs wild, and I need to contain myself in order for things to happen, because otherwise it's just like, you open the box, Yeah.
But all roads kind of led to the game, because that's really this process which Tamar and you just kind of described, that we started with this unrealized project, but all roads led to that. But in a way, because we see the sculptures here, I mean, there are insects, there are flowers, there are trees, there are digital sculptures, and it's kind of connected to what you told us about terraforming. And you also use these sculptures actually even prior to the game in a collaborative practice with Transmoderna, and that kind of collaboration anticipates the collaboration on the game. And it's an interesting connection also to France and the Institut français, because that work of yours, earlier work, is at this very moment in time actually exhibited at the Centre Pompidou in Metz. And until December, and maybe it's interesting, I think, to hear a little bit more about that, about the Transmoderna collaboration and how you did these, digital sculptures in connection there also to sound.
Yes. So my practice with digital sculptures started in late 2017, because actually in the beginning I was doing video art with 2D forms until a point that I really got into 3D softwares and started to explore more and more and more, just right after leaving the Parc-Lage, which is the School of Arts that I went. So basically, it was way more focused on video performance, and I felt that I didn't want to portray my body and my image anymore on my work. So then I found a way that I could actually build bodies, but not human bodies, that could exemplify my need for build memory, culture, and build my own religion in a way, because I grew up not having access to any documents of my family, so I only know until my grandma. So that is no sense of like who we are and where we're going and where we were. So with the digital sculptures, it's kind of like this push to the limit to externalize some sort of symbols and signs that would be part of my life if I had access to my family background. So basically with Transmoderna, what I do is that I basically sit on a computer for 3 days and I do more than 40 digital sculptures, and then 15 of them normally I delete it because I don't like it, and then I follow with like the rest, and then only half of those can get into the process of digital painting and texturing. But for the Transmoderna, I did 60 sculptures, and what I've been doing is that I create a set of things, and to me, they're not even, I think with time, I think I lost the sense of, oh, this is a plant, or this is a tree. Everything became monuments and totems, so even in the game, I'm always calling as like monuments, because they're like a fraction of my memory and my feelings, so I think they base it on my own personal knowledge, or my own personal affection with something, and then I need to like consolidate that by giving shape to this feeling. So if Transmoderna was kind of like idea of like how it would be for me to build a forest, but a forest that actually is reacting to sound, kind of like it is in our world. But just, I was already like rehearsing for the game, kind of like building a world and just letting the other artists to like take this and do what they want, actually like live inside my own piece. Because one thing that I like is to build something and give to someone, and kind of forget that I did that, and then go back and see how it transformed it, or how it's existing. So I think this was like a bridge to actually understanding that I could build compositions. And one thing that I never noticed is that I had an interview. No, actually I went to Brazil because I had to stay 2 years in Germany because I could not go back because of visa. And then when I went to Brazil after 2 years, I met with a great friend of mine who's Edgar's assistant. We are kind of like best friends. And
Andre.
then he told me that since I moved out of Brazil, all my images and videos became more full and packed of creatures. And I guess was actually my feeling of like being alone, kind of like the immigration process was like taking shape in my own art.
It's in the next slide that I'm going to bring up is, I guess, a demonstration of, I suppose, what you've been talking about in terms of giving what was really exciting about the projects and about the way of working with you over these 2 years is the generosity in which you're at this moment where you are giving things to other people and saying, I want you to help form the composition with me. We're going to see a film from an artist called Castiel Vitorino Brasileiro, or collaboration. So which for the game, there are a lot of different films within it. There are cut scenes, but there's also a lot of narrative films that each of the artists, the game I should explain, is 2 huge levels, 6 environments, and each of the levels is developed with a different collaborator, different featured artists. So it was also a question of how to embed their practices into this game, into this kind of multi-level exploration, all queer Afro-Brazilian artists that are also kind of exploring similar issues of what does it mean to emerge, what is the state of emergence, where are we now, and how can their practices help you to kind of navigate differently. So Castiel developed these different dialogues for the scripts for the game and also voiced them. So you're going to see a little film that is Gabriel's sculptures, but embodied by Castiel. Hopefully hopefully. Oh no, first you're gonna see Fun Fun, which is the main character of the first level, and then you're gonna see the film, hopefully. There we go.
Sim. Você sabia que hoje não iria chover?
E você acha que elas vão voltar lá pra fora? Você acha que elas vão querer voltar pra lá? Nós não temos tantas escolhas.
Sempre temos escolhas. Escolhemos castigá-lo. E você realmente sabia que não iria chover hoje?
Sim, e eu vou esconder algumas sementes.
Esconde as sementes por Chewie. Se ele achar, o castigamos.
E eu ficarei responsável pela morte daquilo. Ele irá morrer. Do nosso jeito.
Sim.
Sim.
So that's quite, I guess, like a hum, almost like the sound that you're hearing is all done by an artist called Liza, who did the sound design for the project. But what you're seeing is one of the first narrative films that happens in the game and introduces you to the concept, introduces you to the kind of conceit of the game. So you navigate, if you haven't played it, you navigate through this kind of almost like two consciousnesses. You get deployed into the game as a certain agent, and there's kind of a play between this kind of proto-colonial headquarters that you're being embodied into the world as, and the different ways that you learn to navigate through the encounters or through the artifacts that you find or develop by the different collaborators. But what I think is really, really fascinating, I think the process for this also was, we developed it over, I think the first level, which was always meant to be a beta game. 6 months, we said, and then, it rolled on and we got excited. But I think with Castiel especially, memory was a really important part of her practice, and she's also a trained clinical psychologist. And for you, I think it was important to begin the game and to sort of start the process of a game, an artist's game, in this way that helped to kind of form an undoing. So in giving her the sculptures and giving her the freedom to embed her work and her words and her thinking into the world, it was also about kind of, giving that hand to multiple possibilities of how your sculptures could take form in the world, or how your work could extend beyond yourself.
Yeah, I guess when I knew that I was about to create a really complex and intense experience, because when you asked me to describe the kind of work that I wanted to build, I said that I wanted to create disorientating, confusing, and distorting experience.
Yeah. Which is such a challenge. You're like, no one understands.
And then it was like a fight of like,
how to do that.
Do people need to feel comfortable or not? And then I was always, no. But then really thinking deep about what kind of experience that I wanted the audience to have in the first place, Castiel came to my mind because she's someone who understands minds, who studies minds, and who studies spirituality and studies the land and the relationship that her territory has with her body. Her practice is all around cure. And as a psychologist, this is actually really beautiful in a way, because we also come from a place that people are sick because of hate and because of not being offered the cure, in a way, not being offered effectiveness, affection. So basically I knew Castiel since maybe 2016. We were not artists yet. We were just friends. And we were just like liking each other's pictures, kind of like a crush.
That's how it always begins, yeah.
And we never talked so deep, but we were always paying attention to each other. Until a point that in 2021, I met her in person in Berlin. We never met in Brazil. And then it was really incredible to meet her, because she has a really specific way of dealing with things. She does a specific face when she's annoyed.
She's just
like a big... And
Be like that.
she doesn't care about like anything besides like doing this expression. So then I really wanted the game to have this sensible side and this understanding that Cassiel has, and this passion that Cassiel has for the commitment to connection. So I really wanted this arrival in the third world, because since you're watching like 3 films, or I don't know, it's a really already such a disorientating experience of like needing to focus, because the sound is insane, the visuals are like popping up on your face. So I wanted something that was really seductive in a way that is offering and is interesting in knowing who is the player. So in the beginning of the game is questioning to understand who is that person that is playing and controlling a character that it's near to death, because Fun is this hybrid living, non-living robot or something
like
else.
Biomorphic, almost
Yeah.
like
Really skinny, like really weak.
we're also seeing Fun on the screen above.
Yeah.
This is the first playable character in the game.
So, having multiple conversations with Cassiel, I understood that she was way more interested in knowing how Fun was feeling than actually the kind of structure that I was interested. But then I was, let it be. Let's see how she will develop this narrative. And then we met in Berlin to do the recording sessions with her voice. And one thing that I like to do, I ask the artist to not prepare anything. So basically when we meet, it's all free writing. We sit in a table and then I start to like write a story, because I do that with my own pieces. So I like the process to like start really in the points that we are together, you know.
The point of meeting, it starts.
In the point of meeting. So then we started to play with our voices, and I was telling how this story would be if you were like a bird, how this story would be if you were a kid, how the story would be if you were the water that is living inside this ecosystem. And then I presented to her the ecosystem that I was interested in creating, or the ecosystem that I was having the vision. And then she started to pick and to choose specific elements of it and build a narrative. And then at one point, I'm someone who read all the letters from Pedro Álvares Cabral, which was the colonizer of the land we call Brazil. And I read that during college, and was a really hurtful experience. But I have this experience of getting through that, actually knowing what is written there, and how they saw me in this very beginning. And then Cassia wanted to portray this arrival not by the eyes of the audience, not by the eyes of the player, but actually portray this arrival on how the environment would feel, and what the environment would do, and how the environment would already communicate with this character. Instead of, we don't tell the story of the character, we don't enter deep on who the character is, what the character is doing, because we understand the character has the player. So there's not a figurative form or like another interpretation of the player. The player is the player is the agent, and the agent, the personality, is given by the person who's playing the game.
It's beautiful that the way you describe this dialogue with Castiel, and of course the dialogue involves the whole group of artists with whom you have similarly, intense dialogues. The dialogue with Lisa, which connects to sound. There are great stories also about how that collaboration started. So maybe you can tell us about that. Then there is, of course, Ventura Profana, there is Jota Mombasa, there is Novissimo Edgar. And in a way, I think it would be great to understand, in a way, this incredible depth of this collaborative practice, that you tell us a little bit about how this group, because we've been all at the Serpentine extremely fascinated from the beginning of the collaboration, how intensely the group works together. You once told me also that has a lot to do with actually a very biographical aspect also that has to do with a friend of yours you lost, and it has to do with the mourning also for this friend. But it has also to do, in a way, with a way of again and again collaborating on different projects. And we became also aware of that when at the Serpentine we worked 2 years ago on a park night, which Claude Angel, who is here, curated actually this park night with Jota Mombasa. I then also worked with Jota in Venice, and of course, working on this project made clear that it has a lot to do, the practice, with what Alexis Pauling-Gams says when she says we have the opportunity now as a species fully in touch with each other to unlearn and relearn our own patterns of thinking and storytelling in a way that allows us to be in communion with the environment. No? And that idea of being in communion with the environment is not only in Jota's practice, we could experience that in the performances, but is in your practice, is in Castiel's practice, is in Novissimo's practice, is in Ventura's practice, is in Lisa's practice. I think it would be great to hear a little bit more about the group, and how you all connect in such a deep way, and then maybe, about the different collaborations, how in a similar way you described it beautifully now for Castiel, how you work with Lisa, how you work with Ventura, how you work with Novissimo, and how you work with Jota.
And just as you're doing that, I'm going to be cycling through we've got some beautiful images of some of the collaborators' work in the exhibition as well, so I'm going to show you all of this.
So I come from a story, basically, that all in my life changed when I was presented to the community that I'm part of, the queer community from Brazil, from Rio, from São Paulo, from Bahia. Because in Brazil, we are really connected with social media. So basically, there's like a scene, you can call a scene, and everyone is connected in a way, because there's like very few sponsorship and very few opportunities to create work or to even when we started to go to clubs, for example, not every club that we could enter, and not every club that we could pay to be there, because many clubs, they wouldn't let us in because the way we're dressed or the way we look. So we kind of started to meet each other in specific events that we could be together for the first time, for example. And there's a movement in Brazil called Baticu, which raised from the Lula's attention to bring political affirmation to universities. So then the Black movement in Brazil started to grow, and the Black conscience, yes.
It's like consciential.
Yeah.
I had to learn this through because I guess Paulo Freire became a bit of a reference for the game as well, and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, who talks about this different non-banking method of education and the importance of learning through your own practice or your own understanding. Also, one of the reasons I think we were really excited to do a game.
Yeah. So basically, it started with that, and then actually me, because at that time I was living in Minas Gerais, because I went to college in Minas Gerais, in a really rural area, like the city that I studied was like 50,000 inhabitants, was in the middle of nowhere. Then when I came back in 2016, back to Rio to study in Rio, I started to go to Baticu and other events and meet all those people that now I'm collaborating. And in the middle of this process, I was actually accepted in the School of Visual Arts in the Parque Lage. I got like a scholarship. And then at the same time, I was starting to realize that I could not only meet my friends during the night, but I needed to meet them during the day. So we started to kind of like organize, really organic in a really political way, because also at that time we had a mayor that was from the Protestant church. So he blocked all the events to happen in the downtown of Rio. So we cannot have parties outside, we cannot have events outside. So then kind of like our encounters, our way of uniting was kind of criminalized. So then we started only to meet in galleries, exhibitions, museums, and then we started to also realize that everyone that was together from this community has some sort of like artistic background, or really wanted to kind of like get into university to study arts, or already was doing something related to arts. So then I got the scholarship, did my first video art, and then my second video art, my second piece that I ever made was with Ventura Profana. I reacted to Ventura's Profana performance, and I could not finish. I finished
work
my...
on the top left of Ventura's, by the way.
I finished my graduation, but like in one point, I was not going anymore because it was 3 hours for me to get there, and I would only have like 2 hours of class, and then I would go back 3 hours. And then the only things that we discussed was Marina Abramovic and Bill Viola, which I like it, but like it was so far from my context that I would go home and I didn't have anything to tell my parents because it was so impossible that I could follow any of those practices or that I could get inspired by any of those practices, because I was actually getting in a train that was full of like bullets. So like, how can I relate to that? And actually, the reference that I was bringing, I was really interested in cinema, and all my movie references were Japanese, Chinese, so they were expecting me to bring some sort of like black reference that I didn't have because of the whitewashing that happened in Brazil, and so all the African heritage is really like a taboo in a way. Nowadays it's getting better, but I could not present any sort of connection with my background because there was no one basically, or no one that I knew, because all the black artists, they were also vanished or never presented to me because I didn't grow up going to museums and galleries. It's not part of my reality. So then in the middle of this, I stopped going to the classes because at one point I have like a teacher asking me if I knew what performance was, because I was only bringing exercises of me reacting to Tsai Ming Liang films. So then...
You started as a performance artist as well, right?
Yeah, and I would do really heavy performance that they would not exhibit there. And then the click thing was that before I do video art, I did video installation, which doesn't make sense. But in the end of video installation, I could not present my work in the gallery because I suffered police... There was a police brutality episode that they stopped the car that was carrying like a projector and started to say a bunch of things. That was what I was doing there. So then I lost the guy who would do my installment. It was my first exhibition, and I could not do it. So then I understood this place is not for me. And then at this moment, at the same time, I was invited to perform. Even though super young artist, was like 1 year of career, I was invited to perform at SP Art, which is the biggest art fair in Latin America and in South America that happens in São Paulo. So I went to SP Art to the first performance pavilion in SP Art. There I met all those artists, all those queer people that I knew from Instagram. They're all performing at the same time. During 3 days, I think, for 24 hours, we were there. Kind of like living, existing in that space.
And who organized that? Who curated that gathering?
Us.
Together.
But actually, there is someone, was an artist called Carolina Ricali, and in collaboration with someone called Paula, that I think is Marina Abramovic representative in Brazil. I think something like that. But then we did this huge performance, and Mateusa, which is my friend from Rio, was there. We had like a beautiful... It was the consolidation of a movement, basically, of everyone that could not exist that everyone was actually like suffering genocide and persecution and many sorts of violence like transphobia, racism and classism, and we're all together in that space, all artists, kind of like moaning, screaming, existing, showing this art that never had space in the art context in Brazil. So basically, when I finished that, I went back to Rio, and then what happened is that Mateus got lost. She went to a party, and then when she got out of the party, she got lost in the streets because she was not feeling okay, and then she couldn't like go home because she didn't know where she was because the party was really far from her place. So then she was like having anxiety, and then she ended up in like a place that she wasn't supposed to be, and then she was assassinated, and then her body was put on fire. And then I stayed 1 week looking for Mateus's together with my parents and many of my friends. And I had to go to college at the same time because I was studying advertising at the same time that I was studying arts, which was also not making any sense. But then every day I would get the train, and all the stations that I would pass by after I knew that Mateus had passed away would be the same stations that we were looking for Mateus, the same neighborhoods. And then in this cycle of precariousness and actually every day being locked inside a trauma, every day being locked inside a violence, every day remembering that I was living in a space that is based on the war on drugs, because Rio is designed for the war on drugs to happen and is designed for the genocide of young black people, because there is even some neighborhoods in that public transport does not connect, so it's impossible to get there, basically, if you come from the place that I come from. And then I decided to leave. And then I went to São Paulo. At this time, I was a fan of Venturas Profana. Venturas Profana has a work that it's criticizing and revealing kind of like how people interpret the Bible in Brazil. So she rewrites and reframes the way the Bible is told by the perspective that Jesus is a trans woman, a black trans woman.
A missionary pastor, missionary pastor.
So Ventura Profana is someone that I'm really touched by, and someone that is kind of like the baseline of my work together with Saidia Hartman, together with Denise Ferreira da Silva, and together with Jota Mombasa. And then actually in this moment, I went to Edgar's concert, and Edgar is someone who kind of like builds costumes. So in his concert, he's always like changing outfits and personas constantly, like the beginning to the end.
I think we encountered
kind of compulsiveness.
Compulsive creator, but I think you know, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about the different ways, before we go into Edgar's practice, the different ways that we wanted the game to also be as a real storytelling tool. You know, you really were thinking about how Edgar, for example's practice is, you know, within the game they developed Second Level is very focused on, I suppose, issues of violence, but also issues of pollution, coming from Sao Paulo, and they really bring their history into the game. And I think, you know, this is some of the work that they presented for the exhibition that's on show. You have some textile works, some ceramic works, but also I think one of the big things that you know, you introduced us to Edgar's practice through was just again, I think like, you know, histories and how histories come together, but how we were able to sort of, I suppose, put that into a different form. But yeah, tell us about Edgar.
Yeah, one thing is that I just realized that, but everyone in the project has kind of like a side job, I would say. For example, Edgar, at the same time, he's a visual artist, but he's also a rapper. Lisa, it's a singer and a producer and also a performer. Cassia was a therapist, and at the same time, she is a visual artist performer. Jota is a writer and Ventura is a priest. So it's really amazing how the multiplicity and this sense of kind of needing to be a part of society, not only existing in arts, but actually existing in the context of Brazil, actually connecting art to something that it's more close to the audience in a way, bringing those elements of art, so the knowledge, to the common sense, and playing with that, and playing with people's understandings of what art and what vision means, or what subjectiveness means in a way. But Edgar, I was really interested in bringing Edgar to the game because since the first level we have the Cassia with her whole knowledge surrounded by ecology and myths and self-treatment. Edgar goes to the really raw experience of the city, of the change, of seeing how the change was done by unequal forms and by unequal shape. So Edgar has this really built on his practice and on his whole career. And I met Edgar 2 times, because once I went to his concert and the second one I was on YouTube, just like navigating, and then I ended up in Edgar's album, and then was a film that he did.
I'm just going to show as you're talking.
When he was,
one of Edgar's films.
Can you take down the video? Oh. When he was living in Guarulhos. And then I was really interested in hearing from someone that lived on the street, that experienced all this like gentrification also of São Paulo, that was always in downtown of São Paulo, seeing actually how the population of people that were living in the street grow up like in a way that was never seen before. So I wanted to bring Edgar's view to what a desert with toxic air can look like. A desert that at the same time is not meant to be cleaned, because the creatures that are already there, they adapted to this really intense environment and weather. So I wanted Edgar to bring the kind of like the keys to connect this desert to the city landscape, and to connect the freedom of making yourself in a toxic environment.
And thank you so much for telling us this incredible, in a way, coming together, and the way how you all met. And I think one of the things is also maybe different from previous generations, no? Where, I mean, there have always been artist groups, and whenever such collective moments can happen, I think it's amazingly important for art. But I think in your generation, what happens really is that very often there is an online dialogue, long time before you then actually end up meeting, no? And that's also in the dialogue with Lisa. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because there's an interesting story how you actually met Lisa. I love that story.
Such a good story. I'm showing in the background as well, just the project. So for the game we used Discord every day. It's talking about online spaces and online platforms. Every single day, every single hour, 1 million channels we have to develop it. This is when the project suddenly went live on Steam. We're all super excited. But I just wanted to show you, as you're talking, the fact that, it was really...
Look how many channels.
I know, there's literally 1 million. But it really was a process of like learning and growing together as well. And you jump into the animation channel, see what Carlos was doing, see how they were animating your sculptures. Jump into the trailer channel, see how you were like intensely feedbacking.
Sunday to Sunday.
Sunday to Sunday. But, yeah, Lisa.
Lisa, I was always a fan of her music because she has this kind of sound that it's like, when you're in the club and then you're feeling good about yourself and then you want to show up because you look cute. Kind of like, she has this vibe of like dressing up to a club and then looking chic, and then you're in the club with your friends and then you're all like in one side, and then you're seeing someone taking a picture and then you feel good because you're with your friends and you're all having like this moment that is amazing, of existing, basically, in the way that you want to exist. So I've been a huge fan of Lisa, and she's the youngest in the project. I think she's like 23 now. But when we started, she was like 21 or 20. But when I met her, she was 18 to 19. And then she just sent me like an email asking me to do visuals for her tour, because while I was in Brazil, even when I was in recent years, I guess, here in Europe, I've been always working with the creative industry, kind of like my work is everywhere. But then I have a really strong passion in helping other young artists with like everything that I can, with my own world, basically. So then I designed visuals for Lisa's tour, first tour. And then in 2019, when I came to Europe, I stayed like 3 months in a residency in Spain. And then I really wanted to go to London. And then the only person that I knew that I could tell a story in the in the border was Lisa. And since Lisa is from Rio, I told that Lisa's mom was friends with my mom, and because I was in Europe for Christmas, I had to be in Lisa in order to feel better because I was homesick.
Did not know this story.
And then I went, I got in, I was in London, it was raining, and I went to Lisa's house. She didn't know, because my friends were living with Lisa. So they said, oh, come here, like Lisa lives with us. But Lisa didn't know that I was coming to her place, even though I used her name in the border. And then I got into Lisa's place. I slept in the couch for like a month. And sometimes she would like, it was a long period of time for her to recognize that I was the person that did the visuals for her tour. It took like 3 weeks. And then she was like, oh, you, Gabriel. Even though like she was paying me, you know? Yeah, and then sometimes she would, because she was always like running around doing like gigs, and then I was sleeping in her room, and then she didn't even notice. But it was a really beautiful time, and it was the beginning of our friendship, and since then we've been spending Christmas and New Year's together every year. And she is one of my best friends now. I did, again, visuals for her music videos, and then she did the sound design for the game. And I felt that that it needed to be her, because Lisa is the link, because Lisa didn't grow up in Brazil, she grew up in Amsterdam. But even though growing up in Amsterdam, she holds something that is really particular to us, that really resembles our ideas or our way of navigating through life. And I felt that Lisa would be this connection between Castiel and Edgar, because I think, in a way, Lisa sets the time in the game because of the velocity, the movement, how she thinks about sound is really fresh and is really new because she educated herself. So the way Lisa works is really raw, is really untouched, and I really wanted something that was never heard or never thought that could be inside a video game to actually, and also to bring this queerness of like this merge of Berlin, Rio, and São Paulo that were places that I went through and Lisa also went through. So I really wanted something that was less theatrical in a way, and more like based in my own personal experience of celebrating life or being really fantasized about live performances.
I think you talk a lot about, or we spoke a little bit about at one point as Lisa as like the future. You know, when we realised we could only do 3 levels of the game. You know, it was Castiel was almost, you know, has this very kind of ancestral ties.
Yeah,
we talked about it as being like past, present, Lisa being future. You know, also being so young, so talented. Has done an incredible multi-channel sound installation for the exhibition, which was the first one. Just did it. It's fine. incredible. And Edgar being the kind of present, like almost very socio-political, I mean, they're all very socio-political voices, but I think that, I suppose also, I think what's really exciting talking about the future also is the way that through the project we're also trying to figure out, we've had such a kind of young audience as well, which I think has been really exciting just in terms of figuring out how, I suppose, like next gen in that sense want to engage with art, want to engage with ideas. What does it mean to make these ideas accessible in a certain way? Not only through, we're talking about a game, which is about agency in a sense, it's about navigation. You all start from this kind of the same point, you all spawn at the same point, but what you do in that space is all about the choices that you make. And I think we've developed a project that hopefully will continue, but also gives people the possibility to like take away their own memories, for example, from the project. Really experimenting with the way that I suppose people want or expect a different kind of investment in culture now, which is amazing. That's the way that we should be moving forward. Everyone should be able to feel invested and take that investment away and feel that they're growing with or contributing to something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a single player game. I knew that people would download that. It was actually my idea. I wanted to make art available everywhere since I was here in the Serpentine, having the privilege to exhibit in Serpentine North in such a really young age. And I knew that the people that I wanted to inspire or that I wanted to get touched by the possibility of actually being out, criticizing, wanting your own opinions in a way that you're actually proposing people to rethink about their own opinions. I really wanted that to reach many of my friends and the people that I care in other territories, not only Brazil, but in China, Indonesia. And I knew this would not be possible because of the physical barriers. So when we started the game, I think when you sent me the invitation to the artist world, I think one of the first things that I said that I wanted my experience to be available everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we even had, before knowing about the exhibition, our idea was to build access points in different institutions or in different locations to actually promote the use of video game has a platform or has like a tool to rethink colonialism, rethink the way we navigate within the city and the way we see each other and the way how we perceive new and not visited yet territories, in a way, not visit for the perspective of the player. So entering this Discord like for 2 years, and actually my collaborators, they started to work with each other. They started to have conversations with each other. So I didn't knew how powerful my idea was until the time that I was seeing my collaborators collaborate with each other. And they met during the whole game experience. So I guess this is art. This is what art is to me, and this is what my world means. In a way, I'm creating a world. The sense of world building is that there are multiple creatures, multiple shapes, and multiple understandings of one territory. So it's like multiple rooms. And to me, each and every room needs to be, there is a voice that needs to be added, or that is a emotion and feeling that needs to be added. And I don't think this needs to be added by me, because I already did so much in building this shapes that I really wanted like someone with like a fresh view to take that and take that to somewhere else that I never imagined. And I do this with my sculptures also. That is an exercise that I've been doing of actually building the conditions, building the simulations, and letting the sculptures exist by the way they do want to exist. Of course, it's imaginary, but everything is imaginary in a way. And I think one thing that really touched my heart was during that talk that we had at the DLD, Is It Natural to Be a Machine? that we're talking about machines emanating heat, and that if we consider the life exists by the heat that comes from the cells or the heat that comes from the process, we can consider that my digital sculptures and my creatures, they're actually living because they're emanating heat and because they need to be powered. But it's way more beyond than that, because I can not only build a world and let things to run in their own way. I also, in another side, I like to build worlds that are unequal, and not to recreate the inequality, but to reveal it, to show it how deep it can interfere in all your senses and your cognitions, and how it can also cause trauma, it can cause fear, it can change your personality, it can change the way you dive in the world. Basically, like you're doing that at the same time that you're exploring a completely different technology. And I guess being an artist that works with technology, coming where I come from, and being an artist just because I was touched by a community, technology is out there to be shared, to make your life easier. And to me, this game is a technology to other artists to proclaim it as theirs, in a way of like really going wild in their own practices and taking their practice into the digital realm, which is something that, for example, changed the way that I see the reality that we exist. So, yeah.
I mean, that is kind of a wonderful conclusion in a way. I think we can maybe also take a few questions. I was also very touched by this DLD talk, by what you said there. And of course, the title came from IX Shells. For those of you who want to see it, it's actually online.
I love her.
Yes, and what was amazing about that talk, what you didn't say, was that right after us were the scientists from the Max Planck Institute, who scientifically, have been trying to define what life is. And they basically said they never heard a better definition of life than what you had just told them. So that was really, really magical. And before we open it up to questions or comments from all of you, I had one last question, which I have to ask you because it's the only recurrent question. I've asked you many times before, and you always answer differently. And of course, at this very moment in time, when actually the game, for the Serpentine is realized, it's quite urgent to ask you about an unrealized project. Maybe what is your next game, or an unrealized project, also maybe beyond games. Can you tell us about one unrealized project, particularly dear to you?
This is funny because I guess my answer is always changing, because working with Serpentine, it's also like be surrounded by wonderful opportunities of collaborating with different people and knowing different people. So every time that I talk about a project here, I ended up doing. So then it's realized. But right now, I'm living in Paris with the Arts and Explorer residency, and I'm working there with a project that I started in a commission for Ex-Museum in China about police brutality and the criminalization of baile funk in Rio and in São Paulo. So then what is interesting is that I linked this behavior of the police in Rio to the police in Paris, and now we've seen the last episodes in Paris. So I've been doing workshops with like young kids for the surroundings of Paris to actually build some sort of technique that is based in radical storytelling, to actually having them as authors in my piece or within my sculptures. So my idea is that time by time this evolves as a multiplayer game and a multiplayer experience that actually all those invited new writers, they are accessing this experience live, the dreams that they dreamed. So it's something that I am doing like bit by bit, and I think soon it'll be out.
So it will be realised. It's already.
Yes, soon, but it's unrealized yet.
I think Hans wanted us to have a another dream to fulfill. I guess now's the time to open up to questions, and I think that one of my favourite things you speak about with the project is this notion of, or you introduced me also to this notion of plenum, which is, a full council, and the idea, I suppose, in the way that you explore it, the fact that there's never a single perspective, everything is a multiplicity, an ecosystem is full, you can never have a single perspective. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. And I think if you just raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Jo, and I loved your game. So I saw it on Friday, and I was totally taken with the sound and the connection between the sound and the images. And I felt like actually I'd never ever seen anything like it before. It made me feel incredible to look at the images running towards me and hearing all this amazing visceral sound, and these webs on the walls were absolutely amazing. So thank you for that experience. There are lots. I want to say loads about the passing of power. Was just phenomenal. Kind of metaphor is a metaphor to kind of use in respect to the crystals, and it was really breathtaking work. So thank you. Yeah. Could you tell me some more about the passing of power, sort of this idea?
Thank you so much for your words. I'm really touched. I think the powers in the game was a huge discussion, but since the game has no maps, the first power is actually based on memory, which is the capture power, and then because of the game having no maps and the memory is the way that you build your trajectory throughout the game, there's a navigation power that leads you to specific points of accessing these tokens. And then you present it to the taking power, which the kids are always looking for, which is the gun, that sucks energy. And then there's the last power in the game.
To persuade them not to. Yeah, I don't know if we managed to do that
Just
one.
Explain bullet to everyone. But the passing power, it's in the second level, which is the most violent and brutal level in the whole game. And my idea is that I really wanted something that would not respond immediately, it would not create any sort of clash between two violences colliding in the same space. I really wanted something that would just let the world be how it is in some sort of way. So the passing power is kind of like the ability to become invisible, and then you're not attacked anymore. You're not noticed anymore in this space. You're kind of navigating without being seen or without being considered a threat.
I guess it's
Thank you. Thanks.
Which is also based on privilege in a way, because this is something that I never had access to. So, but I really wanted to bring that inside the game to see how would people use that, and I didn't really wanted to present something that is way more soft in a level that is way more violent, kind of like this breaking the binary of the structures, because in Castiel's level you have a gun and all the characters are kind of super calm and gentle and wanting to have a dialogue. So there's no attacks if you don't attack.
A lot more of an action-based level, also coming from Edgar's work and the way they create. But I think it's also the point with the passing power when you, I guess we keep thinking about or discuss a lot the idea of each level almost as another time, another place, almost in a quantum, I suppose, understanding of these ramifications of the same conditions that each of the artists are almost responding to in the game. So in this level, I think you become a lot more aware of, the environment is a lot more reactive to you, is a lot more actively responsive to you, and is retaliating in a way. Some things, that level that you find it in is also, there's a lot more smog. The environment itself is toxic, like you're saying, and I think it becomes a moment when you are also trying to realize what what is possible, and actually what is possible is something impossible as well. Any other questions? It's dangerous to have this mic. We didn't talk about
Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for Serpentine to break the mold of how exhibitions are and what's exhibited in spaces. Because you mentioned several times, I didn't see the game. I think I decided kind of to hear what you're saying about the thing and then see the game. And I have like a 7-year-old who is in the games, and he's in the stage of adapting to games because there is different stages in life and different things. Because you mentioned several times I want to see what people do. I want to see something. I guess the game generates a lot of data, and how you capture, analyze, and is that open source way to see the data and then other people reflect with what other people do? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. The way the game works, the only thing that is kind of like collected, it's the memory. So basically we are not, the way we kind of like archive the behavior is by creating an archive of images of what you see or what the paths that you choose inside the game. Because inside the game there are some questions and challenges that are based on the idea of choosing or not violence, of choosing or not empathy. So as you advance through the game, you basically already committed a genocide by your choices, by only like pressing a button. So by the memory, you understand also how you see the game, because some people, they would not follow the mission, and the game is not made for you to follow the mission. You can actually just run around and find beautiful creatures, you know. And everything that it's kind of collected, because we have an interactive system inside the exhibition that based on the things that you collect, so based on the things that you take, or based on the dialogues that you have, it activates different sounds in the exhibition. So we are much more interested in the exhibition of the Grupo experience, of the London experience, rather than the single experience. But the single experience is possible by only you getting a memory, structured memory, your own memory inside the game, like your own path, your own decision, and taking that home, taking your own choices with you to your place. So in the because of Tezos, thanks to Tezos, inside the game you capture images and videos, and this go straight to the shop, and then on the shop with your cell phone you can mint this token, and the value of that is way more fictional and related to the emotional aspect of the game than the money. So then it becomes a token, and then you take this token home. It's kind of like a gift of your personal experience. Because I guess the game is also not judging, but it's only proposing conversations. And I guess this is the kind of experience that we wanted to build, and something that I learned with Castiel as well, like to ask the player how the player is feeling while he's playing the game, because she was really concerned and how people were perceiving the world, and if the world was hurting or if the world was offering cure. Thank you.
Can take one more question.
Hey, I love the way that you talk about video games as a vehicle almost to represent you and your friends and the collaborators you work with, the past. As someone who works in video games, I think it's really cool that it's a lot more personal and emotional. Where do you see the future of video games in that kind of dialogue, especially in the art world? For me, it's a new thing, but I think it's really cool.
Thank you for your question. I guess video games in the art world is something that has been happening for quite a while. I saw that personally with the world building exhibition, with multiple works, even like the connection with video games and blockchain with Sarah Friend, who was one of the our advisors within the experience, who had the idea of the memory of the game being a token, of being like a gift for the player. To me, how games are built is really incredible because you have so many layers on top of layers. Games can only be built by collaborative work, and even the games that I saw that were made by only one guy, because I saw a game that was like that. He was referencing someone else. So basically he had to read, he had to have access to an open source library in order to build his own game, and which is really new to art, because art is not a space that always credits everyone who's part of the process, and game coming, which is like a technical tool and entertaining, needs to features everyone who's part of it. So I guess games can present to art way more option. There's way more dynamic, and is way more collaborative, and is way more aware of how a world can be built. So I think this is the future for art, if art embraces video games.
There could not be a better conclusion. No? So thank you so much, Gabriel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.